Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
All right, let's just get right to it. There's so much to do, and we got very little time to do it. It's 5:06. Thanks for being here. Go. All right, I'll take a quick second to let you know that at 6:35, Cal Thomas will join us. 7:05, Laureate Kopp Weingarten, one-stop college counseling. This is college acceptance admission season. I want to talk about some of the changes going on. 7:35, Congressman Mike Waltz. He spearheaded that look back to the Afghanistan withdrawal. Finally. 3 years later. And really amazing stuff happened yesterday on Capitol Hill in that regard. 8:15, we're going to speak with a spokesperson, Lauren Boland, of the National Cherry Blossom Festival.
Great.
Because that's sort of a thing. That's Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
All dressed up in, I can only describe that as a cherry blossom gown. It's like you're going to some sort of black tie event, and the entire dress is adorned with cherry blossom. Are those real or are those fake?
No, they're silk, and I sewed them all on last night. Okay, everyone, that's a lie. I'm wearing a plaid shirt.
It's the mystery of radio. Nobody knows.
I could have really gone with it.
Don't tell them what I'm wearing or not wearing.
It's a family show, Larry.
Yesterday on The View.
Yes. Well, you've been called a highly credible witness, and you have a PhD in psychology. You're a professor. You teach at Palo Alto and Stanford universities. But even today, some people remain skeptical of your story. And you write that during the hearing, Senator Lindsey Graham wouldn't even make eye contact with you. Were you prepared for that kind of response?
I don't even know.
Notice how they start off with the credentialed class, right? Let's list all your degrees. And
I was going to point that out.
Yes, you're a very respectable person.
There's no possible way you could ever lie.
Right.
You work at Stanford.
Right. You have a college degree.
That's the argument.
Yeah.
And this is Christine Blasey Ford, by the way, whose tall tale about Justice Brett Kavanaugh regarding a high school-aged sexual assault has been backed up and verified by literally nobody.
There's not one shred of evidence that this happened.
Not one shred of evidence that they've even been in the same room together.
Yes.
The people she cited being at the house the day that this alleged event, never occurred, said they have no awareness of the event, let alone, again, him ever being in the same room with her.
That's right.
There's literally, and the FBI investigated this at the demand of the Senate Democrats, and the FBI said, there's nothing there.
Yes.
And this is an FBI who was more than willing to fabricate any kind of falsehood to hurt Donald Trump.
And what Sarah Haynes doesn't mention is one of the skeptics was Ford's own friend.
Yes.
Who says she was pressured and threatened to lie in order to hurt Kavanaugh.
How about Ford's own father?
Right.
Who actually supported the Kavanaugh confirmation.
There was no evidence that Ford ever met Kavanaugh.
Well, so sadly, Christine Blasey Ford was not able to attend the appearance on The View. Instead, she sent her 12-year-old daughter to speak on her behalf.
I was prepared ahead of time that none of the Republicans were going to speak with me.
I'm so sorry.
I'd forgotten that voice.
That's her voice. That is Christine Blasey Ford.
Yeah, she's got the rising intonation. Everything's a question. Plus...
Hey, she's a professor at Stanford.
I know.
Stop. She's the smartest person in the room.
It's the rising intonation coupled with the little girl voice, which is particularly disturbing.
Thing.
But again, we had to endure weeks of that.
Oh, yes.
And they were going to use an outside interviewer. And so I was actually surprised at how kind some of the other Republican senators were who broke that protocol and said hello.
Who was that? Can you name a good one?
Senator Flake and Senator Sass both came over and said hello.
Neither one is in Congress anymore, right?
Yeah. But still a credit there.
Yeah,
yes, good for them.
Both good.
Right. The good, remember, it's always the good Republicans, two never Trumpers.
Yeah.
Great.
By the way, I believe they both voted for Kavanaugh, too, for the confirmation.
But they're the good ones.
Mm-hmm.
They're good ones.
And you know why? Because she was lying.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And I did love a big part of this whole interview was Joey Behar bending over backwards saying, so much personal cost to you to have to come out and tell your story, what you have had to endure. But okay, she's literally there to sell a book.
Yeah.
She's going to make a ton of money on the book.
Yep.
She already makes a ton of money on speaking engagements and for telling a lie. And
of course, no sympathy, no thought to Kavanaugh, to Kavanaugh's family, to Kavanaugh's wife, to Kavanaugh's children.
You want to talk about cost? You want
to talk about trauma?
Yeah, but no, she continues to be the victim. But I just can't get over the very beginning. It's just if you parodied this. Well, if we parodied this, because no one who's actually in the business of parody, like The Daily Show or the late night shows or Saturday Night Live, would ever actually do this. But this is parody.
Well, you've been called a highly credible witness, and you have a PhD in psychology. You're a professor. You teach at Palo Alto and Stanford universities. But even today, some people remain skeptical.
Even today, some people remain skeptical.
Let's also not forget that there was no one on that panel in any way, besides that ridiculous comment. Some people remain skeptical because they're bad people. Yes. But not even, the faux conservative Alyssa Farrar had anything to say about the lack of evidence, the fact that that no one corroborated her story.
In fact, Sunny Hostin, the lawyer, she specifically said, I don't want you to go into the details of your story. Because that would be too painful for you. It's like, wait, what's the point of having her on if she's not going to tell her story?
The so-called conservative I expect that stuff from Sunny, but the so-called conservative on the panel, Alyssa Farrar Griffin, said that it was idealistic that she could blow up Kavanaugh and 24 hours there'd be a new nominee. So essentially praising her for what she did to Kavanaugh.
Do you want to hear Alyssa? So this is the one speaking on your behalf, and any other woman in the audience today. This is the woman who is representing you on the View panel against 4 or 5 others.
So that was what was most fascinating to me in the book was you said you were idealistic about the process and you thought you'd be able to stay anonymous and the story would blow over in 24 hours and that Trump may even nominate someone else to avoid the embarrassment, which he didn't. And you didn't find out till we were walking into the hearing that it would be televised. What was that moment like for you?
Okay, well, first about the being idealistic, yes, I was definitely, people have called me naive, and I was very idealistic having grown up in Washington, D.C., and revering all of those institutions and thinking that's the place where we send the very best of people.
Of all the things Alyssa could have asked, that's what she asked. Yeah. You didn't have, that she's idealistic.
Do you think that your problem is you're just too idealistic? Do you think that's the problem here? Is that why people don't believe you? That it was the system that crushed you. By the way, she grew up in Washington. First of all, if you believe her story, she was sexually assaulted and nothing was done about it in Washington, D.C., and that makes you idealistic about this
Washington,
town?
D.C.?
She also grew up...
She said we're the best and brightest go?
And her formative years were formed by the Clinton era?
Yeah.
And that made her idealistic about the good guys and about how the truth is always... And that's all those, by the way, if you...
I know.
No, here's what it means. When she says she was idealistic, first of all, it's because she watched The West Wing. That show has been a freaking curse on this town.
Exactly.
Every single Democrat who comes here and thinks they're going to conquer the world, they think it's all going to be The West Wing.
It was a reimagining of the Clinton years as idealistic. That's what it was, which is...
With a faithful religious Catholic instead of who Bill Clinton really was.
Yes. So... that idealism served me because if I had been cynical or concerned, I don't think I would have ever made it to...
Yeah.
I would never have left the beach in Santa Cruz and gone to see my congressperson. So, but the second part of your question I haven't answered. I'm sorry, I forgot.
No, just what...
Yeah, 58 seconds in, she forgot what the question was, which was about the TV cameras.
Right, woman.
By the way, Alyssa Farrar also seems to have forgotten. All right, we'll get to more of that. And the indomitable Molly Hemingway, who literally wrote the book about this hearing, detailed all of the lies that continue to be perpetuated, including what happened just now here. And we'll regurgitate that for you in just a moment. First, it's 5:15.
WMAL, making sense of mainstream media because the double standard is real. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
So I was very adamant that I didn't want a camera because I'm a little afraid of the camera. And they said, well, we need to have one camera so that all the senators will be able to see you. And they were telling me that when I was walking down the hallway, and it was too late to worry about it at that point. So they said it would be on C-SPAN, and I was just telling myself, okay, nobody's going to watch C-SPAN. Like, my friends are all at work. None of my friends are going to see C-SPAN at work. Fine. And
So I know that she's incredibly credentialed. I just heard the resume, and she's so smart, and she has all these degrees, and this is a moron.
Yeah.
This is an absolute and total pathetic moron. If this is true, that she thought that this wasn't going to be televised, or if there's one camera at C-SPAN, oh, well, nobody watches that. Again, I just want to point out, she grew up in the Clinton era.
And she grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. She was idealistic about Washington. She thought Washington was a big deal. And then she doesn't think anybody's going to watch this.
It's
obviously contentious Supreme Court nominations here. I mean, it's absolutely ludicrous.
Well, and she's laying the groundwork for this narrative that she was lied to. She was deceived. She was taken advantage of.
There is something with the look. It's a whole package. It's the baby voice. It's the sort of Valley girl talk.
Yeah.
It's this like flippy hair that she always, this perfectly coiffed sort of 50s style flip hair. It's a whole package of innocence. And then she presents herself on The View as like, I had no idea what a big deal this was.
Right.
I had no idea accusing some prominent legal figure as a rapist would be a big deal. Like, it totally shocked me. That again,
right.
They're trying to convey this idea of an innocent young girl who was raped.
There's also something else they're conveying, and I'll get to it in a second, but real fast, I want Molly Hemingway to push back on this notion. She says, Blasey Ford claimed to the women of The View today that she didn't know her televised hearing would be televised. In fact, her lawyers had spent a great deal of time negotiating the number and location of the cameras. If she is telling the truth, which is a massive if, her lawyers should face discipline.
Yep.
100%. But there's something else they're conveying. That whole description that you just made of her, of the, with the flip hair and the sort of retro look and just the suburban mom sitting in the kitchen. And I'd rather be at the beach in Santa Cruz. And that's their target voter.
Yes.
That Christine Blasey Ford represents the only hope Joe Biden and the Democrats have of winning, because she represents the only demographic out there that won't vote for Donald Trump no matter what. And think about this for a minute. This happened when? In 2019, I think, was the Kavanaugh hearing, 2018.
Yeah.
Why is her book coming out now?
Fascinating.
Why is her book coming out in March of 2024 presidential election year? Why did they wait so long to tell her story?
Yep.
This has nothing to do with telling her story, and it has nothing to do with selling books. It has to do with the political
voting
impact.
block.
And by the way, that also happens to be the voting block, the only people in the world who watch The View.
It's so interesting, Larry, that you put it out that way, because you really do think about this woman who's childless, right? Married, but obviously gave her, most of her life to developing a career, an academic career, getting those credentials, which to sort of there is a voting block where, that's. I mean, we've been
that was the priority. They were raised saying
we've been having this conversation, this sort of trad wife conversation for a lot of years of like women kind of rejecting it and rejecting this sort of 70s, the message of the 70s, which was build, and 80s of build your career, be a girl boss. Then if you can wedge them in, have kids. But she really is a heroine to women who made that decision. And they're really, crafting that. It's very interesting, Larry, that you put it that way.
That's who she represents. The last hope for Joe Biden to win this election coming up. And so this is what you'll see, and this is the narrative that they're spin. And in the same way that Anita Hill continues to represent something, a lie, a different lie, and creating a demon out of Clarence Thomas. It's funny, the demon here in this story isn't even Brett Kavanaugh. It's Donald Trump, and it's every Republican man. Or every Republican woman, for that matter, who runs interference.
It's interesting, the women that they've memory hold, the victims of some of these male politicians, like Monica Lewinsky, Juanita Broderick. And the rape victim of Joe Biden, the alleged rape victim, Tara Reid. So they don't talk about those.
Well,
women.
and how about all of the nameless, anonymous women who were exploited and abused on Hunter Biden's laptop?
Yes.
Those women don't get their moment on The View. Nope, they sure don't. And it's funny you should mention Monica Lewinsky and all of the victims during the Clinton era, because George Stephanopoulos, the man whose job was to smear, slime, and slander those women and any reporter at the time. If you forget about this part of his job, he would pressure the reporters who were reporting on the Clinton administration, threatening them that they'll never work again, that they'll never get access to the president, they'll never get access to Democrats. Democrats will hate them forever, which is how the Democrat media complex
Which is true.
works. George Stephanopoulos, that guy, well, he's facing the music. Donald Trump is suing him for defamation based on what he said in that Nancy Mace interview when he was trying to do that exact same thing against her. We're going to share that story with you coming up in a bit. And we'll get to more Christine Blasey Ford later in the show, too, because it's just so good. It's 5:23.
Now,
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
5:37 here, chugging along on this Wednesday morning, getting our hump day on. Hope you're enjoying it. We got plenty to get to, so let's just, get to it. Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas, 7:05, Lori Kopp Weingarten, about college counseling and admissions. This is the time of year. Parents and the seniors are sort of figuring out where they're going. 7:35, Congressman Mike Waltz on yesterday's Afghanistan withdrawal hearing. And then at 8:15, Lauren Boland with the National Cherry Blossom Festival. Larry O'Connor here, Julie Gunlock there.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Donald Trump is suing George Stephanopoulos.
It's a beautiful thing.
Suing George Stephanopoulos for defamation. And it all relates back to that interview that he conducted last weekend with Nancy Mace. Let's remind you a bit of that interview here and how it went.
And you've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and two separate juries have found him liable for rape and for defaming the victim of that rape. How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony we just saw?
Now, you'll remember that Nancy Mace was absolutely stellar pushing back on that and calling that despicable line of questioning out for what it was, which was an attempt to publicly shame an individual, not just her, but any other woman out there. You know, if you care about rape, how could you support Donald Trump? That's George Stephanopoulos doing the job of the Biden campaign and the Democratic Party.
It's typical of what Republican women face. You are a traitor to women if you're a Republican.
But making it personal and bringing up her own rape, and this is, and by the way, this is a good lesson for all the Republican women out there who think, well, we should just be nice, and we're on the right side of the issue. They'll be nice to us. No, they won't.
And I want to just make a quick point here. Here he was shaming her about her own rape and saying, "How can you support?" Which someone who worked for Clinton is rich, but it doesn't actually have to get to that point. Women. If you voted for Romney, you were a traitor to your sex because he didn't believe in XYZ. So it doesn't have to get to this level.
Yeah.
Women, conservative women and Republican women are always
You're all traitors.
accused of that. Yes.
That's right. And again, to remind you, George Stephanopoulos literally worked for the Clinton campaign. He was in charge of what they called bimbo eruptions.
Yes.
Smearing the women who truthfully said that Bill Clinton had attacked them. But also, more importantly, because he was rewarded with a job at ABC News, right? Mm-hmm. More importantly, he leaned on reporters and threatened them to not publish the stories, telling them, you'll lose all access to the campaign. You'll lose. If he wins the presidency, we will not have anything to do with you. We will ruin your career. This is what he did.
Yep.
And this is what he still does. Now, that's odious and that's horrible and that's terrible, but you can't sue somebody for being a jerk. But what's hidden in here is the real problem. Believe it or not, what he did to Nancy Mace and publicly shaming her and bringing up her rape and all that, that's not even the problem. This is the problem.
And you've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and two separate juries have found him liable for rape.
That's a lie. Mm-hmm. We said the next morning when we played this audio that that's a lie. It's not that it's inaccurate. It's a lie.
And also, look, this isn't some, podcast no one listens to.
Right.
Okay?
It's a Sunday show that no one watches. No, you're right. The platform is very important here. It truly is. But there's something even more important about the fact that it's on ABC News. You see, I told you that it's a lie that a judge and juries have found Donald Trump liable for rape. And the reason that I know that is because I watch ABC News. You see, George Stephanopoulos, who has a senior position there, and one presumably assumes that he is part of the editorial conversation at ABC News. And at the very least, like me, he watches ABC News. I wonder if he was watching the day the verdict came in, because this is how ABC News reported it.
Aaron, the jury found Trump liable for sexual abuse, but not for rape. What was the deciding factor there?
There you go.
That was ABC News.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was asking the question
Not even
to
George is watching ABC News.
their legal expert, Aaron Katursky. Now, why is it important that ABC News and their editorial guidelines had this? When the story broke, they had the truth, they had the fact that the jury, because the jury was offered the choice. They were given in their instructions, you can find him liable for rape. You can find him liable for a lesser charge, sexual abuse. They chose sexual abuse. They could not reach a verdict on rape. That is a factual matter. This is not an opinion. It's not spin. I know later a judge said, well, it's basically the same thing. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
There is a specific legal definition here. And again, I want to point out that George Stephanopoulos' own network reported it like this.
Aaron, the jury found Trump liable for sexual abuse, but not for rape. What was the deciding factor there?
All right. So why is that important? Well, because defamation law in America gives a whole lot of protections to journalists. Way too many protections, in my opinion. But they give huge protections to them, and you can only be found guilty of defamation if it can be proven that you have actual malice against the person, which I think you could prove here too, by the way.
Yes, for sure.
Or what the courts have defined as reckless disregard for the truth. Reckless disregard for the truth means the facts are there, they're easy to find.
Right.
Any normal person, and certainly a diligent and well-funded journalistic endeavor like ABC News, should be able to do the very simple work to have the facts at their hands. And if you don't have it, it's willful disregard for that truth for the purposes of making a political point, which is exactly what is happening here. And willful disregard for the truth it's a no-brainer because, again, I just played you how ABC News reported the story when it happened. Specifically went out of their way to say he wasn't found liable for rape. So here's George Stephanopoulos saying that. The way this plays out, Julie Gunlock, is delicious. Absolutely delicious. Because ABC News and George Stephanopoulos, they have a choice in front of them right now. Because they have the same facts that we have here, I assume. They can either say, screw it. Take us to court. So, are you kidding? I will fall on this. You bet. Let's play this out. And that would be a wonderful thing to see. Or most responsible corporations, better than just settle. The only way to get rid of this, because I've been on the other side of it, the only way a journalistic institution wiggles away from a very important defamation suit is to publicly apologize and correct the record.
Yeah.
And we need this to happen.
Well,
I want George Stephanopoulos to squirrel out of his hole.
All I can say is I hope Trump gets $500 million for this from
just
New York.
pass the E.G. Carroll bill over.
Exactly. Over to Letitia, and then we're done.
How about just a file transfer? You know what? Let's cut out the middleman.
You guys, let's just pretend this never happened. None of it.
Actually, why don't you just keep your money because you're all on the same team anyway. Right. You're all going to keep it, right? Who cares?
Exactly.
Good for Donald Trump to fight back.
Yes, definitely.
And can I just point out,
and also let's just to the Never Trumpers who were like, "But he fights," and makes fun of him for fun of all of us for saying, "But he fights." Thank God he fights.
That's right. No. But he fights is a kind of an important factor here. Because we're sick and tired of this. How often do they lie about us? I'm so sick and tired
of the Republicans, the sort of Romney-esque Republicans rolling over and going, let me apologize one more time.
Let me just say to my good friend,
and honestly,
George Stephanopoulos and I disagree on a lot, but let me just say.
The Nancy Mace pushback is specifically because of Donald Trump. Yeah. We're not taking it anymore. We're not going to let you defame us and bully us and shame us. That's a good thing.
I had another really important point to make.
You forgot. Did I forget?
Am I getting old?
Yeah, Larry,
or is it just, it's the hour. Yes, I'm getting old.
We're getting old. We're Gen X. Deal with it. You should gracefully handle. That's what Gen X does. We don't care. Who cares?
Hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Cuántos cuestan los zapatos? Una chorizo grande. Hey, so the Biden campaign They're going all out for the Latin vote.
Oh, go to a
baby.
Mexican restaurant.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Margaritas for everyone. They are launching a huge, huge initiative to win back the Latino vote.
So say it with me. Si se puede. The future is ours.
That's right. Si se puede does not mean the future is ours. Does she think she meant that? It's yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Si se puede.
Podway.
Yes, they're going to have Jill Biden lead the effort.
As unique as the breakfast tacos here in San Antonio.
That's right.
Just a national treasure.
She is the best. I'm excited about this initiative.
Si se puede.
And so is Jill Biden. He's going to stop. So this is how he's going to launch it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
President Biden will use a stop at a Mexican restaurant in Phoenix today to announce the national program called Latinos con Biden-Harris. Cone. I like ice cream cones. What's your favorite?
Si se puede.
They're not good at this.
Biden solidly won the Hispanic vote in 2020, but recent polls show Democrats losing their grip on the demographic. I do like the way, who wrote it this way? Fox, yeah, because that's how they think of it, a grip. They're ours.
It's amazing how they don't think that maybe, their attack on independent contractors or the fact that, there are no jobs.
Yeah.
That maybe the way to attract the Latino voter is not through these little stunts like going to a Mexican restaurant, but
and
rather
calling them breakfast tacos?
Pursuing policies that make life better for people, especially working class people. That's how you get Hispanic voters.
Nah, you just pander to them.
Yep.
And here he was at the aforementioned restaurant.
I want to thank my campaign manager you heard speak first. She is, it's a little bit in her blood. Cesar Chavez was her grandfather.
See there? So that's you got to pander. My campaign manager is the granddaughter
See the
of
one
Cesar
with the
Chavez.
sombrero over there?
By the way, Cesar Chavez is a communist. Just FYI. I love driving down the streets of Los Angeles, seeing Cesar Chavez Avenue, saying, seriously?
Yeah.
My tax dollars for this? Huge turnout there, by the way. I'm counting, I think, about 20, 25 maybe.
He's the guy that got me interested. He came to Delaware when I was running in I won't even tell you when.
Because he can't remember when.
Exactly.
1871. He came to Delaware in the 1970s to help deal.
Well, I don't know why the feed cut there, but did you hear that?
That's because he said 1970s and his campaign staff was like, no, that was 100 years ago.
He's claiming that he got involved in politics because Cesar Chavez came to Delaware. God. Now, he has in the past claimed that he got involved in politics because of Martin Luther King in the civil rights movement.
Yes.
Other times he said that he was inspired to get into politics by Bobby Kennedy. It depends on what
this
audience
week it's because
he's
of
listening
Christine
to.
Blasey Ford.
And Cesar Chavez.
Yeah.
And of course, the truth is that he got involved in politics is he had no discernible skills.
Right.
He didn't have good grades. And the only way a corrupt individual like him can make any kind of money and get any kind of women is if he got into politics.
Yeah.
And so that's exactly
There you
what
go.
he did. And now he's our president. God bless America. So it's exciting to see what he's going to do with the Latino vote, with Latinos con Biden-Harris, which it just trips off the tongue, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This is going to be a great effort.
Did you also see this weird thing he did at the Mexican, sort of wandering off the stage?
Well, I mean, he does that all the time.
Well, he saw a baby and he went over and sort of cooed at the baby. It was so weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
But it was a weird thing. Like he looked lost and then he sort of wandered off and approached this baby. Of course, the mother thought it was charming, but she was a plant.
It's shockingly, though, he's still not the strangest or stupidest person in that family.
Si se puede.
It's 5:53.